There are moments in life that carve themselves into the soul and never fade, and my story begins on a quiet morning when the sun rose softly over our small neighborhood, and my little girl Lily smiled at me the way she always did, her eyes bright like they carried their own light, her tiny hands gripping her pink backpack as she got ready for school, and I remember brushing her hair, gently feeling the warmth of her head beneath my palm, and she laughed a little and said, "Mommy, you always brush too slow, but I love it," and I smiled back, pretending not to know that these were the kind of moments that hold the world together. And if I had known what was about to happen that day, maybe I would have held her a little longer, maybe I would have braided her hair just once more, maybe I would have told her how she was my whole universe wrapped into one small body. But life does not warn you when it is about to shatter. When she walked out the door, I watched her from the window like I always did, and she turned back and waved, and her smile seemed to float in the air for a moment before disappearing behind the corner of the street, and I remember thinking that she looked so happy, so safe, so untouched by the darkness that hides in the cracks of the world. And I went back to my morning tasks, making breakfast, washing the dishes, humming the tune she loved, but deep in my heart, I always felt this strange tug, a mother's instinct, maybe a quiet whisper that something in life can change in just one heartbeat. The call came from the school around 10:30, and when the phone rang, I did not think anything was wrong. It was too early for panic. But when the voice on the other end said that Lily had never arrived, my whole world tightened like a fist around my chest, and suddenly the air felt too thick to breathe. I remember sinking to the floor, the phone still pressed against my ear, my heart beat loud and wild, as if trying to break out of my body, and I asked them again and again, "What do you mean she didn't arrive? She left home, she waved at me, she was walking the same road she always walks," and the silence between questions felt like a storm gathering deep inside my bones. When I ran outside, the sun was no longer warm, it felt harsh and cold. Even though it was midday, I started searching the streets, calling her name, knocking on every door, asking every neighbor if they had seen her, and time felt like it was slipping away like grains of sand falling through my shaking fingers, and every minute that passed felt like another step farther from her, another shadow growing between us. The police arrived and asked questions, but all I could hear was my own breath trembling and the words repeating again and again in my mind, "She didn't arrive, she didn't arrive, she didn't arrive." And I told them she was wearing her pink backpack and her blue shoes, and her hair was tied with the little butterfly clip she loved, and they wrote things down, but to me it felt like nothing was moving fast enough, nothing was real enough, nothing was loud enough to match the terror inside me. The sun began to set as the search grew larger, and I remember watching the sky turn orange and then purple, and all I could think was that my daughter had been out there for hours alone or with someone I did not know, and every second of it tore into me like sharp glass. And people were talking around me, neighbors, police, volunteers, but their voices sounded like echoes, underwater, distant and warped, because my mind could focus on only one thing: where is my child? Where is my child? Where is my child? Night came, and with it a cold that crawled under my skin, and I stood on the porch staring at the dark street, knowing that she should have been home by now, watching her favorite cartoon, asking me for snacks, giggling at nothing, and the emptiness of the house behind me felt like a living creature breathing in the shadows, because without her the walls felt wrong, the air felt wrong, everything felt wrong. Hours turned into days, and every morning I woke up with this crushing weight on my chest, as if someone had placed a stone on my heart while I slept, and every night I sat near the window staring at the street, hoping that maybe she would appear, walking slowly, confused, tired, but alive. And I prayed with every piece of my being, prayed in ways I never had before, prayed with a desperation only a mother could understand, and it felt like every breath was a prayer, every heartbeat a plea, every tear a silent promise that I would never stop searching. People tried to comfort me, they brought food, they sat beside me, they held my hands, but comfort felt impossible, because how could I rest, how could I sleep, how could I eat when my daughter was out there somewhere, maybe scared, maybe crying, maybe calling for me, and the guilt wrapped around me like chains, heavy, cold, and merciless, because I should have walked her that morning, I should have held her hand, I should have listened to the instinct that whispered something was wrong. But motherhood is built from regret and hope blended together, and in those days hope was the only thing keeping me alive. Days became weeks, and the police still had no answers. They searched cameras, questioned strangers, followed leads, but every path grew cold, and every cold lead froze another piece of my soul. And yet deep in my heart something refused to break, something refused to let go, because Every memory of her smile, every echo of her laughter, every warm touch of her tiny hand stayed alive inside me like a fragile flame flickering in a storm, but never dying. One night, after everyone had gone home and the world had gone quiet, I sat on the floor of her room, the soft glow of her night light brushing over the toys she left behind, and I picked up her small stuffed rabbit, the one she slept with every night, and I pressed it to my chest, and I whispered to the darkness that I would find her, that I would keep searching, that I would never let fear win. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something shift inside me, a spark, maybe a breath of strength rising through the cracks of my broken spirit. But hope is a strange thing. It can lift you and it can tear you apart, and in the weeks that followed, I felt both the rise and the fall, the strength and the pain, and everywhere I went I carried her photo, showing it to strangers, posting it on walls, asking every pair of eyes, have you seen this girl? Please tell me if you have, please tell me anything. And every no felt like another door closing, another light fading, another heartbeat growing heavier in my chest. Weeks slowly bled into months, and the world around me kept moving like nothing had happened, but inside me time felt frozen, heavy and cruel, and every morning I woke with the same question burning in my chest: where is my daughter, and why can I not reach her? And every night I lay awake listening to the hum of the quiet house, as if the silence itself was trying to speak to me, whispering pieces of hope, pieces of fear, pieces of memories that made my heart ache. People told me to rest, they told me to be strong, but they did not understand that strength was not a choice, it was a necessity, because every moment of every day my mind painted images of her somewhere in the dark, somewhere calling for me, somewhere holding on, and I had to keep moving, I had to keep breathing, I had to keep searching, because if I stopped even for a second it felt like she would slip farther away from me, and I could not bear that thought, not even for a heartbeat. I searched every neighborhood, called every shelter, visited every police station, and spoke to every person who might have seen anything, and I carried her photo everywhere, the edges worn soft from my hands, trembling around it, and when I held that picture it felt like holding onto her voice, her warmth, her presence, like she was still here with me, whispering, "Mama, I am trying to come home, just do not stop looking for me." Night after night, I wandered the streets, retracing the path she walked the day she vanished, and sometimes I would pause at the corner where she waved before turning out of sight, and I would close my eyes, trying to feel her small hand in mine, trying to hear her laugh, trying to breathe in a life that felt like it had been stolen from me. And in those moments, I felt the world tilt, as if grief had its own gravity, pulling me down, pulling me deep, pulling me toward a darkness I refused to surrender to. The police kept me updated, but every update felt like the same cold sentence: "We are still looking, we are still searching, we have found nothing." And each time they said those words, I felt the hope inside me flicker, but never go out, because I knew my daughter, and I knew the fire she carried in her tiny spirit, and I knew she would hold on, I knew she would wait for me, and I would crawl across the earth if I had to, just to reach her. One afternoon, months after her disappearance, I received a call from a detective, and his voice felt different, heavier, slower, as if he were holding something fragile and dangerous in his words. And he asked me to come to the station, and the drive there felt endless, every street stretching like a road through a nightmare, and my hands would not stop shaking, because a mother can sense when something is shifting, when the air itself is holding its breath. When I entered the room, the detective looked at me with a softness I had not seen before, and he told me they had received a tip, a witness, someone who claimed to have seen a girl who looked like Lily being led away by a man near an abandoned property outside the city. And those words hit me like a storm, because it was the first real lead, the first real possibility, the first fragile thread of truth after months of darkness. We drove together to the location, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break my ribs, and when we reached the area the world went silent, the trees stood still, the wind held its breath, and the house looked like it had been forgotten by time, broken windows, cracked walls, tall grass wrapping around its foundation like nature itself was trying to swallow it whole, and something about it sent chills down my spine, but also a strange pull like gravity drawing me toward it. The officers searched the house, and I waited outside, pacing, praying, trembling, and every minute felt like a lifetime, until suddenly, I heard someone call out from inside, a voice filled with urgency and fear, and I felt my knees weaken as the world started spinning around me, and one thought filled my entire being: please let her be here, please let her be alive, please let this nightmare end. Moments later, an officer stepped out into the fading sunlight, and I felt the universe collapse into a single point in my chest as he stared at me with eyes that carried both sorrow and hope and told me they had found signs that a child had been there recently. Small items, scraps of clothing, faint footprints, but no child, no Lily, and the ground beneath me seemed to fall away as the hope that had risen so sharply now twisted into heartbreak again. But something inside me refused to collapse, because even though they did not find her, the signs meant she had been alive, she had been close, she had been real, not a memory, not a shadow, not a ghost swallowed by time, but a living, breathing child who was still waiting, still surviving, still holding on. And that knowledge filled me with a new fire, a new strength, a new promise that I would never stop, not until she was in my arms again. That night, I could not sleep, the image of that house haunting me, the thought of her being so close yet just out of reach burning through my mind. And as I lay there staring at the ceiling, I felt something rise within me, a determination sharper than anything I had ever known. And I said to myself in a whisper that carried the weight of a mother's love, I will find you, my girl. I will break every door, climb every mountain, tear apart every shadow. If that is what it takes, I will not let fear win, and I will not let darkness take you from me. Days after that lead sparked something new in the investigation, and the search expanded farther, broader, deeper, and for the first time in months, I felt movement, real movement, like the world was finally shifting in the right direction, like the threads were slowly weaving together into something that could bring her home. And every morning I woke with purpose, every night I stayed awake with hope glowing faint, but fierce inside me. I knew the road ahead would be long, painful, uncertain, but none of that mattered, because a mother does not measure distance, she measures love, and love is stronger than fear, stronger than despair, stronger than the unknown waiting in the dark. And every step I took, every breath I drew, every tear I wiped away was guided by one truth: I would not stop until she was found. The days stretched on and the nights grew colder and lonelier, but I carried her memory like a lantern in the dark, every laugh, every tiny hand, every sleepy whisper playing in my mind like a song that refused to end. And I walked the streets, retracing paths I knew she had walked, imagining her steps beside mine, imagining the wind brushing her hair, the sun warming her face, the world around her alive and vivid, while I searched for signs that she was still out there, breathing, waiting, hoping for me as I was for her. Volunteers joined the search, neighbors and friends, strangers who heard the story and could not look away, and they became part of the rhythm of my life, calling her name, knocking on doors, posting flyers, driving miles I could not count, and every voice that answered my plea, every person who stopped to look for her became a part of the invisible net holding her in the universe, until the day I could finally reach her, and I realized that hope was not mine alone, it was ours, it was the world standing with me, whispering, stay strong, keep going, do not give up. I spent hours on the phone following leads from people who claimed to know something, and every lead felt like a thread dangling in front of me. Some would snap, some would tangle, some would lead to nothing. But I learned to follow them all, because even a single strand could pull me toward her, and I could not risk letting one opportunity slip through my fingers. I could not let one moment pass where she might have called out and I was not there to hear her. The memory of her face never left me. I pictured her eyes, her small nose, her hair tied in the butterfly clip, the way she held her backpack, and these images burned themselves into my heart so that even when exhaustion threatened to swallow me, I could not collapse. I could not rest, because rest felt like forgetting, and forgetting was impossible, not when every heartbeat shouted her name, every breath carried her essence, and every tear spoke of my unyielding love. And then one morning the call came that changed everything. A voice I barely recognized, yet one I would never forget, spoke with urgency, telling me to come quickly to the station to bring nothing but myself. And the moment I heard that voice, I knew in the marrow of my bones that this was it, that the universe had tilted in my favor, and I drove there with trembling hands, a pulse like a drum pounding in my ears, and every red light, every turn felt like a trial testing the strength of my resolve. When I arrived, the detective met me outside, his eyes soft yet sharp, and he told me that a witness had seen a little girl matching Lily's description with a man who did not seem like her father, and that they had followed the trail to a small apartment on the edge of the city. And my heart began to hammer like it wanted to escape from my chest, and I took a deep breath and whispered, please let it be her, please let her be alive, please let me hold her again. The drive to the apartment felt endless, and when I arrived I saw the officers moving with quiet precision, checking windows, doors, and scanning every corner, and my stomach twisted with anticipation and dread, because this could be the moment when the nightmare ended, or the moment when the storm broke and left me empty again. And I closed my eyes for a brief second and sent every ounce of love, every prayer, every memory out into the air, hoping it would guide her to me. Then a small voice called out from inside a room, a voice I knew in an instant, a voice that had been my heartbeat for months, a voice saying, "Mama, Mama," and I ran as if the earth itself could not hold me, ran faster than fear, ran faster than time, and the door opened, and there she was. Lily, my daughter, tiny, fragile, perfect, alive, and in my arms for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, and the world around us seemed to vanish, leaving only her small body against mine, and the sound of our hearts beating together in a rhythm that said we had survived. I held her close, tears streaming down my face, feeling the weight of months of pain lift slightly as if some invisible chain had been broken, and she clung to me, trembling at first, then slowly relaxing as the reality of safety wrapped around her like a warm blanket, and I whispered over and over, "I am here, I am here, I am here," and she whispered back, "Mama, I knew you would come, I knew you would find me," and those words carried the power of the universe inside them, and I realized that love truly is stronger than fear, stronger than darkness, stronger than the long cold nights that tried to steal our hope. The officers checked everything, ensured she was safe, and with each step she took away from danger, every glance she gave me a spark of light ignited in my heart, because she was back, she was real, she was alive, and nothing could ever erase that moment, the moment when months of despair melted into pure, undiluted relief, and I could finally breathe again, because she was mine and I was hers, and the bond that had kept us both alive through the longest nights had never been broken. That night I brought her home to the small house that had felt empty for far too long, and as we walked through the familiar halls I saw the familiar objects, the worn couch, the little table in the corner, her toys waiting patiently, and I knew that the house had held its breath too, waiting for her return, and I promised her that we would fill it again with laughter, with joy, with light that no darkness could touch, and she held my hand tightly as if to seal that promise in her own tiny grip. In the days that followed, we spoke little at first, because words felt inadequate, too fragile to contain all the emotions swirling inside us. But every hug, every glance, every soft word was a balm to the soul, a quiet affirmation that we had survived together, and I marveled at her strength, at the courage she had carried in her small body through months of uncertainty, and I understood for the first time fully that the spirit can endure far more than we ever imagine. We worked slowly to rebuild normalcy, routines, meals, bedtime stories, walks in the park, and every small act became a victory, a reclaiming of life, a celebration of the simple, mundane, precious moments that had been stolen from us. And in the quiet of the evenings, when she would curl up beside me, I would tell her stories of hope and resilience, of courage, and of the power of never giving up, and she would listen with wide eyes, absorbing every word, because even a child knows that love is a shield and hope is a weapon against the darkness. And as the weeks turned into months, we began to heal, not entirely scarless, because some wounds leave marks that never fade, but with resilience, courage, and a deep, unbreakable bond that could not be shaken by any shadow that tried to cross our path. And every day I thanked the universe silently for returning her to me, for giving me back my daughter, for allowing the threads of hope to hold fast even when it felt impossible, and I whispered promises that I would never let her go, that I would protect her with every fiber of my being. Life after her return was not simple or immediate. It was a delicate weaving together of fragments of normalcy and moments of fear that lurked like shadows at the edges of our days. And I learned quickly that healing is not a straight path, but a winding road full of peaks and valleys, and every smile she gave, every laugh that escaped her lips was a victory, a declaration that the darkness had not claimed her, that the bond between us was stronger than any obstacle that had tried to separate us. I watched her sleep at night and marveled at the small rise and fall of her chest, the way her hands curled softly around her blanket, the innocence that had survived months of uncertainty, and I kissed her forehead, whispering a silent prayer of gratitude and protection, knowing that every moment she drew breath was a triumph of endurance, courage, and love that nothing in the world could take away from us again. The days were filled with small acts of recovery, trips to the park, visits to her school teachers, neighbors, friends, slowly reacclimating her to the rhythm of a life interrupted. But each step was careful, each glance vigilant, because the world we lived in now carried the echoes of what had happened, and yet every shared laugh, every spontaneous hug, every simple meal became a stitch in the tapestry of restoration. And I learned to cherish the ordinary, the mundane, because we had come to understand that ordinary life is a treasure beyond measure. I told her stories of heroes, women and men who had never given up hope, who had carried themselves through impossible odds, and every story was infused with the truth of her own experience, because she had lived the heroism that most can only imagine. And in the quiet moments we would sit together and draw pictures or read books or simply hold each other, and in that closeness I felt a depth of connection that transcended fear and pain and spoke directly to the eternal strength of a mother and her child. The media covered the story, and while the attention was overwhelming at times, it also became a platform to raise awareness to missing children, to the dangers that lurk, and the importance of vigilance and community, and we used it carefully, speaking about courage, resilience, and hope, allowing our story to shine as a beacon for others who might be trapped in shadows and needed to know that love can guide them home, that perseverance can overcome despair, that the human spirit is unbreakable. Therapy sessions began, and at first they were awkward, filled with pauses and silent tears, and yet gradually, through patient guidance and shared vulnerability, we began to untangle the fear, the anxiety, the small frights that had taken root in the months of separation. And each session became a milestone, a small victory, a reclamation of the psyche, and every day brought subtle signs of recovery, a bright glance, a burst of laughter, a willingness to venture further into the world without fear. I found myself marveling at her resilience and my own, the way in which tenacity and hope can survive the longest nights, the coldest fears, and the deepest uncertainty, and I realized that courage is not a singular moment of heroism, but a continuous thread, woven through every breath, every heartbeat, every step taken, even when the world seems determined to extinguish it. And I felt gratitude for every day that allowed me to witness that courage in her eyes, in her smile, in her tiny hands reaching for mine. We began volunteering at local organizations supporting missing children and families in crisis, using our story to instill hope, to show the power of relentless love and persistence. And each interaction became a reaffirmation that life can be reclaimed, that darkness does not have the final word, that even the most harrowing experiences can transform into a source of light, guidance, and healing for others. And in giving back, we found a new purpose, a new meaning, a new layer of connection to the world around us. Every anniversary of her return was marked quietly yet profoundly, with small rituals, a picnic in the park, a favorite meal, a quiet walk, holding hands and reflecting on the journey we had survived, the months and years that had tested us, and the love that had guided us through each moment. And I would whisper in her ear reminders of her strength, of the love that carried her, of the resilience that shaped her very being, and she would nod and smile, and I would see the fire still burning bright. The nights remained a time of reflection, of quiet gratitude for the miracle of her survival, for the fortitude that had carried both of us through despair, and I would sit by her bedside long after she slept, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, feeling the pulse of life that had been fought for, that had been earned, that had been returned to me by the power of determination, and the unseen threads of fate that had guided her through the darkness to my arms. And I would silently vow to always protect her, to always honor the courage she carried, to always nurture the light within her. As she grew older, we spoke openly about her journey, gently and lovingly providing context without fear, planting seeds of understanding, resilience, and hope. And she learned that she is not defined by what was done to her, but by the strength she cultivated, the love that surrounds her, and the ability to face the world with a spirit that cannot be broken. And together we celebrated the ordinary, the extraordinary, the beauty in survival, the power and hope, and the unshakable bond that had carried us through every storm. Friends and family marveled at the transformation, the healing, the courage displayed by both mother and child, and yet we understood that the true measure of triumph was not recognition or accolades, but the simple fact that we had endured, that we had returned, that we had reclaimed life from the shadows. And Every day thereafter became a testament to the power of love to overcome fear, to rebuild what was lost, to nurture the light of hope even when all seemed lost. And I knew in the deepest part of me that our story would continue to guide us to new heights, new joys, and new depths of connection. And so the years passed slowly, deliberately, beautifully, each day a canvas painted with the lessons of endurance, the colors of love, and the intricate brushstrokes of hope. And every small act of living became a celebration of life, reclaimed a tribute to courage, unbroken a recognition that even after the longest darkness, the sun can rise again, the world can become whole, and the heart can expand to hold the fullness of joy, sorrow, resilience, and triumph intertwined as one eternal rhythm, carrying mother and daughter forward into the vast uncharted horizons of life together.